As we enter a new decade, CEOs are showing record levels of pessimism in the global economy, with 53% predicting a decline in the rate of economic growth in 2020. CEOs in South Africa are also pessimistic about the rate of global economic growth, with 44% compared to 35% in 2019, believing that it will decline over the next 12 months. These are some of the key findings of PwC's 23rd survey of almost 1,600 CEOs from 83 countries across the world. It was launched this week at the World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos in Switzerland. For more on this, we are joined by Dion Shango, who is CEO of PwC Africa. Thank you very much for coming, sir.
Good afternoon, Colin.
What question is this survey really posing in terms of how the outlook of the world economy is going to be like? And given that there are different dynamics of each and every country, this pessimism, what really informs it?
The survey, Colin, we've been running for 23 years now. This is the 23rd such survey. And over the years, it has proven to be a fairly accurate, a fairly reliable barometer of what would happen with the global economy in the next 12 months following the results of the survey being released. Now, the one theme that is strongly coming through, as you said in your earlier remarks, is that of uncertainty. Most CEOs are saying that they don't expect the global economy to grow over the next 12 months. And the interesting thing is that that is not coming out in pockets, but it's across the board, all regions, all companies. You are seeing widespread pessimism.
So we have been seeing a downward trajectory of economic performance, and the numbers have not been shooting up when you look at all levels and sections of the economy, looking at agriculture, mining, manufacturing, and so forth. If this is happening in the case of South Africa, how does it speak to other economies so that we can get an understanding of these bilateral relations, the Africa Trade Agreement, and as we know that there's Brexit, there's going to be these bilateral trade relations with South Africa and Britain, whereas on the other hand, South Africa will be trading with Europe and existing relations with the US and China.
South African CEOs in the survey are not shielded from the challenges that are faced by their global counterparts. And when you hone in on what the South African CEOs are saying, you can clearly see that they have their own unique local set of challenges by virtue of being based in South Africa. Yes, there are those industries out there that have the promise of giving off or coming out with the earliest green shoots, provided that business or CEOs get a level of certainty from government on policy, provided that business is of the view that regulation is not excessive. And those are some of the key fundamentals that CEOs are saying to us is needed in order to create an environment conducive to investment.
So is the survey and the responses of the CEOs oblivious of the fact that there has been the Africa Investment Forum and the South African Investment Summit? Given that there were pledges out there which were made, doesn't that speak to what may happen in the not so distant future when these pledges manifest into economic activity, job creation, and contribution to GDP growth?
The investment pledges that have been made at these various investment forums are an indicator of the fact that business in this country still has significant appetite to invest. It is simply saying that the environment is not conducive enough and that there are still certain key fundamentals that they need to see in place in order to have better certainty, in order for investors to be of the view that they can have predictability in what will happen in South Africa. Now, these pledges, some argue, represent investment that has already been planned or that is needed in any case. And what we really need to see is new investment coming out ideally from foreign sources, from foreign investors, in order to create new capital, new money in the country.
So now, what are companies supposed to do when faced with uncertainty in an environment where there are job cuts and companies are scaling down? The local economic activity can be regarded as lowly performing.
So, Colin, Some questions in the survey do deal with this very theme of how does a CEO or company plan for growth under such negative circumstances. And what we see in the strategies that CEOs are employing is that most organizations are actually looking inward at how they themselves can rationalize their own operations, how they can extract more efficiencies out of their supply and value chains, how they can drive organic growth as opposed to making investments outside in corporate action or mergers and acquisitions, and how they can be more efficient overall as organizations.
So can we for sure say that the outcomes of the survey are painting a gloomy picture?
Indeed. In addition to the record pessimism that we recorded last year on the basis of the 2019 results, we were quite surprised to see a further deterioration in CEO optimism, and so this does bring about some concern.
So what's the way forward, and suggest solutions so that we cannot just be looking at the negative side of the economy, but rather be optimistic on the other hand that things could be looking bright?
Yeah. So South Africa does not exist in isolation. For the average South African CEO out there would need to be some change in some of the global macro factors. We do state in the survey that issues such as the trade conflicts or trade wars between some of the major trading nations, such as the US and China, do increase uncertainty. In fact, when one looks at the World Uncertainty Index, it hasn't been as high as it is since 1996. Looking at more local factors, certainly the dialogue that we see between business and government needs to continue. But we increasingly get the sense that the patience of business is wearing thin, and they certainly want to see more concrete action at a faster rate by government.
All right. Thank you very much for making time for speaking to us.
Thank you, Colin.
All right. Dion Shango is CEO of PwC Africa, talking about the issue of pessimism on global growth and hoping that things will be better as the year progresses.